Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Today I wanted to give you a tour of the Goat, which is the expedition vehicle that I recently purchased that you can see behind me. I bought it a few weeks ago, done a bunch of modifications to it, added a bunch of upgrades, and then went to test it in the Canadian Rockies winter at minus 16, 18 degrees Celsius to see if it had everything that I needed and if the modifications I had done were all good to go. But after the trip, I have to say that it's great. It's just working the way I needed it to work, the way I wanted it to work, and so I decided to give you this tour today. Now, just to give you some context, I have explored in a 4x4 for over 20 years. It's been a long time. I started in Europe where I had my little Suzuki Samurai. I went through all the coasts of Europe, all the remote areas. There was no GPS on the phone, there were no maps on the phone, everything was unknown. So I have a little bit of experience with these things, and in the years I've built a bunch of vehicles, not just trucks but also a couple of vans, and finally I've settled on this setup. Now I'll do a different video explaining why I think this is the best solution for me and maybe the pros and cons of other setups, but I can tell you that I've tried pretty much every single setup because I am always obsessed by efficiency. Because when I go out and about to take pictures, I need to make sure that everything works well and that I'm comfortable doing what I need to do. Because it's one thing when you do it on the weekend and it's another thing when you have to do it every single day. So it is very important for me to have a setup that just works. So to give you this tour, I'm going to start from the outside and go let's say compartment by compartment, and then I'm gonna go inside and show you how it is. So it's based on a Ford E350 chassis, and it's basically the same chassis that they use to make vans, but in this case instead of a van you have an actual camper on it. Now the camper itself is made by a company in Washington under the request of Fraserway RV, which is this company in British Columbia, very famous for obviously RVs. And these units are mostly for rental, and sometimes they sell them after they have reached a certain amount of kilometers. Now this one particularly was almost brand new with 10,000 kilometers, just above 10,000 kilometers. And when I saw it, I said to myself, this is it, I need to get this vehicle. Now the rig here, it's obviously not a stock E350, it's been lifted by about 7 inches, and it is also fully converted into a 4x4. Now this conversion has been done by Clydesdale Vans, that is in Kamloops in BC, and they've done an excellent job with it. The truck is really good off-road, has a decent amount of flex considering the weight and the size of this beast. I have also added to the rig the front and rear lockers because originally he didn't have it, and it's geared with 456 gears, so it is pretty capable off-road, which is exactly what I want. I have explored off-road for many years, as I said, so I really didn't want to be left behind because I cannot take a road that is a little bit rugged. The vehicle has a very good clearance, so you can see down here, and this is also true because this camper is a 4-season camper, so all the pipes that normally are just under the camper in this case are boxed inside the camper, so you do lose a little bit of living space inside, but you get a lot of advantages. You don't have pipes outside, you don't have issues with clearance, and more importantly, when you go out in winter, which is something I love to do, Essentially, you don't have to worry about freezing pipes or freezing connectors because everything is boxed inside the truck. I'll show you from the inside as well what that means. You can see that the rig is well equipped with a big bumper, steel bumper, which has a little bit of a rust point here which I have to fix. There is a winch that is a worn 12,000 pounds wireless winch. I've added the recovery points and all that kind of stuff, and there is a bunch of lights that are useful at night or to get into a campground when otherwise you don't see. And another thing that I've added in terms of lighting is the backup lights, which are these two aux beam lights, which I actually love. Otherwise, I've removed all the original stickers. I've added the logo in there. It's all in nice black and white. All this bottom part has been wrapped into this rugged black vinyl film. Here you can see the antenna for the VHF, which I've added as well. The grill has been blacked out as well with the wrap because originally it's chrome, which I don't necessarily love. This thing is not cheap. It's actually quite expensive, but considering how much just a single truck is, you have to spend 100 grand on a truck. It is not actually that bad considering all the advantages that it has. For me, this is a house on wheels and it's worth its price, absolutely. As I said, I've had a lot of setups, I've tried all the configurations, and the best setup I had before this was hands down my fully built up Delica L400 van. After that, I never found the same comfort and useful space that that little van was giving me. And when I saw this reminded me of that kind of setup, but just on steroids, and so I just couldn't pass it. All right, so let's start with the propane tank. Here you can see when I open is a fixed propane tank. I've added this extra connector here which allows me to add an external barbecue or whatnot and use this propane tank with it, or I can also feed into this connector from an external tank. So if this by any chance runs out of propane, right now is about half of it, I don't have how to fill it up, I cannot fill it up, then I can simply go anywhere, buy a tank of propane and feed through this port here without having to worry about the inside tank. It's an emergency option that is very important. I can also attach my propane generator to that port, and so I can run all the electricity in the RV or in the camper, however you want to call it, through the generator in case I run out of power, but that's unlikely and I'll show you why. All right, the next compartment is the utility compartment here. Very, very simple. I have a couple of bins with connections for campgrounds. So there is water connection and there is electricity connection, which I don't really use very much. A toolbox and a tool bag where I have like straps and other kind of things in there. And that's really it. Very simple. Lots of space in these compartments that work pretty well. Under this, always lock it back because I don't want people to steal. If I don't have to make their life easier. It's the recovery area, which is anything that has to do with off-road and winch recovery operation. So there is a strap, there is a tire fix, there is air compressor to fill up the tires, shackles, and a bunch of other things in there. Everything is readily available, and the fact that I have this second compartment here for my recovery gear, it's really, really good. There is an exterior plug here, outlet plug, that works when you have shore power, so when you are plugged into a campground power or whatnot. There is a light there with the LED, and there is an awning that comes out. I rarely use it, but it's there if one wants a little bit of shade. We will see in summer how it works. Now going on the other side, obviously this is the back here. You can see there is the spare tire, there is my two backup lights that I've added. That's the gas tank, which is a little bit of a pain in the butt sometimes because it's all the way in the back of the vehicle. Under the vehicles I do have recovery gear, so I have my traction boards as well as my Rotopax gas. Now if you pay attention closely, you can kinda see it, but not really right away. And I didn't want to put anything outside just to discourage theft. All those things are locked under there into the chassis as well as the spare wheel, and they are pretty solid in there. And actually shout out to Pick CNC, which I'm gonna add into the description of the video. They made a plate that I bolted onto the chassis, a molly plate that they usually use for their track bed racks, and I managed to install everything under there. And there is also an axe right here. Not sure you can see very well. This is a little ladder that goes on the roof, and here there is my Starlink mount. Now the Starlink mount is mounted on a pole that I had to add because the ladder is too short, and so that pole got a lot of salt and snow when we were in the Rockies, and you can see that the paint is not holding up too well. To be honest, I painted it very quickly, so I was expecting something like that already, but that's how Starlink is mounted there. I'm gonna have to make something a little bit more permanent and better looking. Now on this side there is the interesting stuff. This camper comes with two 88 amp hour AGM batteries normally, which is actually not enough for me, and so I decided that I had to upgrade the whole thing, and that's exactly what I did. And that's the most important part of this build, because obviously I have to be able to work remotely from the RV, my production work as well as my photography work, and so I added a bunch of things. So here we have two 280 amp hour eco-worthy lithium batteries. I've added all these nice connectors in there, which I love because allow me to connect all the things I need to connect easily. And then I've added a 2000 watts power inverter here, as well as a DC to DC charger that is used to charge the batteries as the engine runs, essentially. With these two batteries and this charging setup, I didn't have to plug into power, not even once. Across the whole trip, even if I had the chance to plug into the campground and I paid for it, I did not have to, because I had plenty of power at all times. Outside of that, it's pretty much a standard camper. There is the fridge access, the water heater, the furnace, exhaust. This is for plugging into shore power. This is interesting because this is where your drain are for the tanks, and as you can see, there is nothing under the RV. Everything is pretty much clear, right? So it's very important because basically all the pipes are inside here, which is the inside of the camper itself. There is also a little shower on the outside. So that gives you an idea of the outside. I'm gonna go inside and show you now what's in there. All right, now we are inside the RV. It's a little bit dark in here. First of all, you can see the cab here. Welcome to the 1990s. This is a work truck essentially, so the cab, it's pretty basic. Not even leather seats, nothing is wrapped in leather. Everything is plasticky and ugly AF. Now, I did not expect that when I got to know the price of the vehicle, but it is what it is. In a way, it's very simple and works really well. There is the stereo here that is a little bit more modern than the previous years. You have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Here you can see I have my GPS tablet that I use to navigate, mounted with RAM mounts. action camera in there. Added a couple of things, really, not a lot. There is the VHF radio that I've added there with the remote, with the mic right there. And I've added a couple of things just in terms of cables and whatnot, but it's very simple. Here you have a couple of charging ports, you have the Android Auto or Apple CarPlay connector, which sucks because it doesn't even have enough power to charge the phone, so it will hold the phone charged but will not charge. So I've added this fast charger that works through the cigarette lighter port, and really that's it. I've also added a Husky mat, which is super important because really this gets dirty all the time. Here you can see the four-wheel drive conversion. So this one doesn't exist in the normal E350, so this is an actual 4-high 4-low transfer case that has been added in there. And here there is a lot of space. Now when I'm alone here or with my dog, I can put my camera backpack there and be ready to shoot if I find animals on the road or whatnot. Otherwise it's just a great access to go back. Okay, moving away from the cab, there is the bed, which I think is almost a queen bed. It's not very bright up there. I turned the light so you can see something. There is my 2 tripods here. Obviously they have to go somewhere, I haven't quite figured out, but there is the 2 windows, which is very nice. There is also a fan that is covered right now. And then on the other side you have the actual RV or the actual camper, and here you can see how it is structured. Now we went through bumps here, so it's a little bit messy but nothing fell, which is great. And you can see here there is a table that swings out, there is tons of storage everywhere, another fan for summer, big fridge, absolutely empty right now because I'm not prepping for any trip. Right there, a closet where you can put all your stuff, bunch of drawers here, propane stove, which I love very much, pretty solid, actually doesn't make any noise, even microwave, which I don't use at all. A propane oven, which is a luxury here, so if I'm in the mood I can make a pizza. Love to have the windows here. You can see that I went off-road because everything is a little bit messy. I did not deflate the tires either, so. And you can see how cool it is that you are outside and you sit in the back, or that you can actually eat like that, or work even like that with that view. I love it. It just makes things so much nicer, and you are comfortable inside as well. So double sink, very useful as well. Lots of storage under there. I haven't even figured out what to do with all this space, really. More storage here. This microwave, I just don't use it, so I might actually remove it and do a charging compartment or some sort. And then my favorite part, the bathroom. Oh, there is a skylight, so it's very nice and bright, and it just makes it for a very comfortable coming back after a heavy day of shooting. This is basically the electrical setup. In here is the box that you saw on the other side from the outside. It's all inside here or under the seat. Same thing for this other side. Under this bench there is all the camping bins that I showed you before, and here there is the water tank. So the water tank is heated, there are electric pads on it, and also there is the heat here that goes everywhere inside, so everything keeps nice and warm. Now what I've added here is this battery monitor. Here connected to the 2 lithium batteries, there is an inverter switch, so that's the inverter power on off switch, and then this button here, it's connected to the DC to the DC charger, allows me to switch between the 50% power versus 100% charging power mode. In other words, I can charge the batteries at full 60 amp hour or when this is on, I can charge it at half the power or half the speed, however you want to say it, so 30 amp an hour. The reason is that this is enough for me usually when I am on the road and I drive quite a bit to charge the batteries, and it's a little bit lighter on the alternator. And then finally I've added this outlet here just for inverted power essentially, so those two are connected to the inverter. This camper does not have any power switcher, so it doesn't have the automatic switching between shore power and inverter power, and I didn't really want to add it because I don't plan on being on shore power very often. That's why I have such big batteries in here. So I added those two outlets essentially for my laptop and to charge my EcoFlow. So there is three ways actually that this system can be charged externally. So externally means not with the engine, just outside of the engine operation. Number one is the solar, which I haven't showed you, but is right here. The solar control panel here. Now right now is not really charging just because the battery is 100%. So I have two solar panels on the roof. One was already coming with the unit, it was 100 watts, and I've added that 200 watts solar panel high efficiency in here too. So that's solar panel number one. And then I have an external generator that I don't always bring with me, depends on the trip. That generator can charge the batteries via gas or propane. And then the third charging is the EcoFlow, so the external battery. So that's three other ways that I can charge the batteries in here. But honestly, after that trip, full winter, driving a decent amount but not a lot every day, I found that the batteries last so long that there is really no problem at all. We will see once I start working more intensely from here in my coming trip to Alaska as well. That's gonna be a long trip, so we will see how it does here, but so far no problems whatsoever. As you can see, the camper is very spacious. I saw a lot of vents before going for this option, and I think that this is a much more living space than a van. I also don't like that the van is very cramped, you can barely walk in between. When there is two people in here and the dog is still decently comfortable, though my dog is pretty big, being a German Shepherd. The other thing that is super important for me is that I can stop, turn off, lock in, go back, eat, work, or go up and sleep without having to worry about going outside of the truck. And that seems a little thing, but it's not. When you travel and you don't know the area, and maybe you are in a sketchy situation, a sketchy environment, sometimes it can happen that you don't know you are, but then you realize you are. You know, it's safer to have this kind of option instead of having a camper on a truck or an RV that you are towing. This is a much more comfortable situation on that side of things as well. The driving on, you can see the radio works decently well, and you see Google Maps there. This is my tablet for navigation. Coldplay started playing here, and then I've added these things obviously to make life easier when on the go, all the receipts, the pass for the parks. You see there is the States one and the Canadian one. So this engine is a 7.2 liters, and it's a big beast of an engine. It's a gas 7.2 liters, but it's been a great engine so far. I haven't felt like it was underpowered, not even once. it was going pretty good uphill, downhill, and in general everywhere that I've taken this thing to, and overall has been solid. In terms of consumption as well, obviously uses quite a bit of gas. I think the way that I calculate gas is not what most people do in terms of miles per gallon or whatnot. For me, driving with this thing costs about 40-50 cents per kilometer. Okay, so this is in Canadian dollars. So if I have to do 500 kilometers, I know that it's gonna probably cost me $250 of gas. Can be better depending on what kind of road obviously you're traveling. On the highway goes better. Maybe I can do 30 cents per kilometer, but it's important for me to keep track of gas this way, because when I plan my trips I need to have a clear idea of what's the cost of the gas for the trip, right? So this keeps it simple and I don't have to do weird calculation. How it drives? Well, it drives bad. Like, the feeling is that of an old Jeep with very vague steering feeling and a lot of play in the steering. So it's not the best driving vehicle, not a race car by all means, but it's not that bad either. If you are used to a truck that has a solid axle front and back, you are sort of like already used to what I'm saying here, and maybe you have an idea. It's nothing too crazy, but you have to keep your hands on the wheel and pay attention all the time, because the moment you look somewhere else, the vehicle goes the other way and you don't want to end up into a guardrail or into somewhere else. So that's sort of like an old school way of driving, and it's just the way it is. I don't mind it whatsoever. So that's really it, guys. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel if you think you can have any value out of this content, and maybe leave me a comment down below. Let me know if there is something else you want to know or anything that you want to share. And in the meanwhile, I'm gonna drive home because I'm hungry and there is a bit of road to do, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.